Now you should be at one of Live Oak Campground's picnic tables. This slope you're on drains into Dan Cook Canyon. Few people remember Dan Cook today, yet his story is connected to that of California's famous railroad barons, Huntington, Crocker, Hopkins, and Stanford. Known as the Big Four, they and their political operative, David Colton, bought up more than 1,000 acres of land at the base of the mountain in 1874. After a few years, Colton bought out the other partners.
And he named the holding Railroad Ranch, which was fitting. And he loved to ride horses. And that was the death of him. He fell from a horse and hurt himself, and he died of blood poisoning. And the property was inherited by his daughter, who happened to be married to a man named Dan Cook, hence Dan Cook Canyon. Dan Cook and his brother Seth Cook, they were famous for being the most profane brothers to ever race the slopes of Mount Diablo and probably much of Contra Costa County. And that was saying a lot for a mountain that had a scalp hunter living nearby, James Kirker, the meanest man in the West, John Marsh, and circus clown turned miner, Doc Ryder Powell. So to be that foul-mouthed, you really had to work at it.
Mount Diablo developer Robert Noble Burgess wrote in his memoirs about an encounter with Dan Cook and his brother Seth.
Robert Burgess tells a story of working at his home in Danville, where Burgess's father was a minister. Here comes a carriage drawn by horses. Who's in there but those scary Cook brothers? They stop the carriage. Dan Cook looks at Robert Burgess and his brother. He says, "Damn it, you boys, come over here." And of course, they're shaking in their boots, and they kind of slink over to the carriage, try not to make eye contact. And Dan Cook takes out a $20 gold piece, and he flicks it down at the boys, and he says, "Here, give this to your father. Tell him he's the only goddamn minister who is any good that I've ever heard." They had just come from church. Years later, Burgess put that in his memoirs. He never forgot his scary encounter with the Cook brothers. Anyway, Dan Cook was the first of the Cook brothers to die, and Seth took over the property. And when he passed away, went to his niece, Louise Boyd, and she's the one that sold it to Robert Noble Burgess all those years later.
You'll hear more about Robert Noble Burgess in segments 9 and 10.1. For now, though, stay at your picnic table and listen to segment 7 about Mount Diablo's influence on outdoor cooking.